Now is the time that I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, Lynn Barrett. She was born and raised in Unity, so I'm already envious of her. That would have been wonderful, wouldn't it have been? She's a licensed Unity teacher, licensed clinical social worker, and a spiritual counselor. She's also the director of the Interfaith Counseling Center through Unity Northwest in Des Plaines, and a certified brain spotting therapist. So if you're missing your brain, she can help spot it for you. She also serves on the board of directors for the Center for Enlightenment and the Midwest Brain Spotting Institute. So there's a whole institute that can help you find your brain. That's great. She teaches classes and workshops on mindfulness, evolution of the soul, 7 steps for successful life transitions, and spiritual psychology. She blends spirituality and psychology with her philosophy that we are all here to evolve into more conscious, responsible individuals. She believes mental health issues arise when we are out of alignment with what is happening within and around us, and that when we embrace and adjust to the life situations, our equilibrium is restored and we feel stronger and more capable to accept what is in front of us with new joy and new understanding. She's talking to us about soul evolution in her talk, You Might Be a Soul Evolutionist If... Please help me welcome Lynn Barrett.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be with you all. You all are a really energetic bunch. I love this. You know, I actually kind of try to get into the vibe of where I'm going to be speaking, right? And so I was thinking at first, okay, this is Naperville, right? So I've got to be like prim and proper. And then there was just this feeling like, no, you got to be energetic and vibrant. So I'm like, so I had to change my whole look for today. I'm so glad I did because it was right on. You guys are awesome, so thank you. So I want to take a pretest before I go into my talk. Just based on the little bit that you've heard or read about soul evolution, how many of you think that you're a soul evolutionist? Raise your hand. Okay, so maybe a little bit less than half of you. Okay, awesome. Well, I'm getting to that. Jeez. Okay, I got that energy, but just flow with me. Stay with me here. So, we are all souls evolution. Souls in evolution. We are all souls in evolution. We are all here to grow in consciousness, grow in a conscious awareness of who we are as human beings and that expression and what that expression needs to be. And we're evolving in our awareness of who we are as spiritual beings, because those two are a little bit different sometimes, right? There's a little bit different rules, a little bit different focus, but we are all evolving. So let's kind of get on the same page with that. So what is evolution? So our friends at Mirriam Webster define evolution to mean to develop by evolutionary process from a primitive to a more highly organized form. Okay, we get that in our science classes and all that, right? It can also mean change or development. So soul evolution then is developing and changing and growing from a lesser awareness of who we are as spiritual beings to a greater and greater and greater awareness of who we are as spiritual beings. Okay, so we're all on the same, does that help? Does that okay. So, listen closely and we'll do a post-test at the end, because you might be a soul evolutionist if you want to feel more of that connection to the universal energy that surrounds us all the time that we were singing about this morning. That if you have a desire to know that more, and you just have a sense that you can know that God presence more. When I was 19, I had just finished my term as international president of the Youth of Unity. I was born and raised in Unity, as Rhonda shared, and was, kind of moved up the ranks in the Youth of Unity to be international president. We had just finished a week-long Y.O.U. conference, Youth of Unity, Y.O.U., at Unity Village in Missouri. And it was a wonderful time. It's always a time where teenagers get together and just be accepting of each other. And then it's hard to go back to school after that, right? Because schools are not like Youth of Unity. So we all have to go back into the routine of the real world. And it was such a beautiful experience. Actually, from that experience, I flew on a plane from Kansas City to Des Moines, which was probably the same amount of time as driving, because it's like a 3-hour drive. But anyway, they sent me home on an airplane. It was this little puddle jumper, right? And I loved flying on airplanes. I still do. And everybody got on the airplane, and they pick up their magazines, and we're flying in the air, and I'm looking at the clouds, and the clouds are so beautiful. It looked like the desert out of one window, and then I jumped across the aisle, and I looked out the window out the other side, and it looked like all these big piles of snow. It was so beautiful. I'm looking around, how can you guys be looking at magazines when there's this amazing beauty outside? I felt so fulfilled after that week-long experience. I even had the thought, if this little plane went down, because it made kind of a lot of noise, right? If this little plane went down right now, I'd be okay, because I feel like I did what I was supposed to do. It was a beautiful week for teenagers, for the adults who were there with us, and I just felt like it's okay. It wasn't a morbid or sad thought, even though it may sound like it. It was a peaceful, very peaceful. So anyway, I went back to school. I was getting back into the routine. I was going to Iowa State at the time, and a couple weeks into the school year, my roommate, who was a couple years older than I was at the time and was engaged, went home to hang out with her fiance for the weekend, and I was left with my part of the mess of our room. And I thought, okay, well, it's Friday night. I don't have anything else to do. I'll just clean up the room. I'm sure she was happy about that. So I put on some cassette tapes. You guys remember those? Of some music. I always had 2 or 3 or more cassette tapes of music that I had picked up from Youth of Unity conferences, and I was listening to one of my favorites and running around the room, picking up my clothes, picking up my piles of papers, and there was one song, my favorite song, and was a chant, and the words were, "I surrender to the love of God flowing through my life." It was just that slowly, beautifully, over and over again. I surrender to the love of God flowing through my life. I surrender to the love of God flowing through my life. And I'm singing this and picking up my clothes and cleaning, and all of a sudden, I started crying, like that deep gut cry that made me literally drop to my knees. And as I was watching myself sob from the inside, I'm thinking, why am I crying? I don't have anything to cry for. I'm like, everything's going great. Why am I crying? And then I hear this voice, and I actually didn't even hear it. I felt it more than I heard it. Like one of those big voices that you turn around and you go, somebody in here with me? And thought I was alone. And it said, don't be done with God just because you're done with Y.O.U. And I'm sure I'm putting more words on it than what it was, but it was, don't be done with God just because you're done with Y.O.U. And I realized I had this concept of myself that I was in Y.O.U. I was being of service in the Youth of Unity because my mom would love that, or because my friends were there, or because, it was the thing to do. If you go to the conferences and you just move up the ranks, that's just what you do. But what I realized was, oh my gosh, this is who I am. I did that because it's in my heart to do. This is my love of service. I have to make my life about this. in some way, shape, or form, I have to make my life about this. And at the time I was a psychology major, and even though I'm a therapist now, what I did at the time was I changed from psychology to speech communication because I knew I wanted to be a licensed Unity teacher. My mom was a licensed Unity teacher, so I knew what that looked like, I knew what that meant, and I always wanted to speak to people, I always wanted to do something that impacted other people. So I changed my major to speech communication, added sociology eventually, just for fun, and my track went from, I don't really know what I'm doing, to, okay, I know what I'm doing. I need to be a licensed teacher. Don't want to be a minister, but this is what I need to do next. So it changed my course. I got in touch with that deep desire to know God more, to serve God more, but to know what that means to me, and had an experience of knowing that that's what's in my heart. So think about yourselves. Each of you ended up in Unity in some way, shape, or form. Something happened, whether you were born in it like I was, or something shifted in you and you went, there's more to life, and I need to know that. I need to know what that more is. Which brings us to our next point, to know if you are a soul evolutionist, because you might be a soul evolutionist if you know that there's something more to life than what you've been experiencing so far, or what you can experience with your physical senses. You know that you have that sixth sense of intuition, and you put it to work. You don't just know it's there, you put it to work. Everybody's intuitive. It's like an extra limb that we all have, but maybe we don't know that we have it. Or maybe the muscles of that intuition haven't been developed yet. But we can do that anytime. That intuition is how we get our messages. It's how we understand that, hey, there's things that we have to do, and we've got to get direction from something outside of our heads, because our intellects are awesome, but they're not the be-all and end-all of the information that we have access to. And that universal storehouse of wisdom that we do have access to knows a heck of a lot more, is a heck of a lot smarter than our very intelligent brains could ever think of being. That intuition is how our spiritual revelations come through. That experience when I was in college that I just shared was a revelation that came through my intuition. My mind was quiet enough. I wasn't thinking about anything but that song that was moving through me, and I could feel it moving through me, and that was my intuition heightening in that moment so I could receive that message that was very important for me to receive. Our minds are so busy and we get so into thinking things through and trying to figure it out that we forget that there's something else going on inside of us, all around us, that can help us out, but we forget to ask. But the soul evolutionist knows about this intuition. The soul evolutionist knows, I have this tool, and I got to use it or lose it, which we never really lose it, but it can go latent for a while if we're not using it. So if you're not already using that intuition, you can start any time, like asking, what should I wear today? By asking, what grocery store should I go to? What restaurant should I go to? You know, there's more to it than asking for the parking space, right? You guys do that, right? You know what I'm talking about. You know, okay, parking Buddha, let's get a close spot here. Let's make sure we know. So asking about anything, even those little things, is excellent practice for strengthening that intuition. Because if you're listening to it, it's going to go, oh yeah, I got you now. Because now I'm going to tell you where to go for the grocery store, but I'm also going to tell you, hey, you need to forgive that person, which we don't want to hear sometimes, but that's how we grow. That's how we evolve. And we're going to talk more about that this afternoon. So practice using your intuition. Even more, and if you're doing that now, do it more. You might be a soul evolutionist if you want to understand why things are happening on the outside and on the inside. There are so many injustices in the world. We know that. Why is that happening? There are injustices interpersonally. Well, that person did this to me, and it's just not fair, and I would never do that to anybody, but I'm mad now. Okay, but there are answers to the why question. There are answers to that. But we've got to explore, we've got to develop that intuition so that we're tuned in enough to understand those whys and to be able to hold them. Because things are true in our human living situation that we have, in the opposites, the ups and downs of life. But there's a third perspective. There's a third perspective. We've got the ups, we've got the downs, and then we've got the third perspective, which can see both sides, understand why they exist, understand how they fit into the awakening of humanity, and can have compassion for it all. And it's not a passive observer, it's an active observer that can be able to see, okay, I don't like what's going on in my life right now, but I get it, and I will do my part. I'll do whatever it takes to move through this as smoothly as possible. And it's okay if my personality self doesn't like it, because my soul doesn't really care what my personality thinks most of the time. But my personality cares a lot. As a soul evolutionist, we also pay attention to what's going on in the inside and the inconsistencies that are happening there. Well, I'm a good person, so I don't know why every time I get around that one particular person, these judgments they just make my muscles tense up, and I just start judging them, and that's not who I am. Why am I doing that? What's going on inside of me? And we can find out. We can find out why that's going on in us. When I was a kid, I'm the middle child, so usually that's the peacemaker, but I was kind of ornery, so I would be the instigator a lot too. And so I'd get into tussles with my older sister, my younger brother. And one time, I remember my younger brother and I were wrestling, and we were playing around, and all of a sudden, he was probably winning, now that I look back on it, but I got really mad at him. And I just started yelling at him, I hate you, and you're so awful, and da-da-da. And he doesn't even remember this. I've apologized to him for this for many times. He's like, I don't know what you did that I don't remember, but you keep apologizing for it. But anyway, after that experience, I went and I cried to my mom. I felt so bad. Mom, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why. And she was very comforting, but she didn't really have any answers for me either. But that started me asking, why? Why do I do things? What's going on inside of me? About 20 years ago, there was an ad campaign for a beer that went, why ask why, drink Bud Dry? And I remember, I think I brought up that little commercial every time, because why? We should be asking why, and not asking why because we're drinking a mediocre beverage, but asking why, because why is the foundation for discovery. We ask why, and then our intuition starts rolling. Like, well, I don't know, let me find out. And then I can tell you information because you're listening now. Why is such an important question? Why is such an important question? And when we look at the evolution of our souls, and we're going to talk more about this afternoon, we get to see the bigger picture that we've been around for a long time, a lot more than this lifetime, and we've accumulated things. We've accumulated things that need expression and fulfillment. We've accumulated things that need completion and healing and release. But that overall bigger picture explains so many of the injustices. My son, who turns 17 on Thursday, has a piano recital this afternoon. And y'all asked me first, so that's why I'm here and not at his piano recital. But he started playing piano when he was 5, and he sat down at the piano at 5 years old with his piano teacher, and he owned that thing. He owned it. Within a few months, he was playing a complicated song with 2 hands. I took 2 years of piano. When I was like 9, I started, and all I remember is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star with my right hand. How fair is that? Why couldn't I have sat down and just started playing stuff? Does that mean God loves my son more than he loves me? I can understand. Yeah, somebody said yeah. Yeah, okay. Fair. That's fair. Okay. I could think that. Don't be sorry. No, that's good. That's audience participation. I like that. You know, we can think that. Why is that person's life put together and mine is not? Why doesn't that person seem to get help from the universe like I get? And all of these discrepancies. But there's an explanation for it, because we're all evolving. We all have our own stories. We all have our own soul history, our own things that we need to heal. And life is here set up to bring those things up into our awareness, whether it's those things that we need to express more of, like my God heart that came forward, or the forgiveness needs that we have, or the attachments to things that aren't healthy for us. There's different things, but each one of us has our own journey. And there are some people in this lifetime who are here just to have everything go smoothly, because maybe they haven't had that experience before and they needed that for their soul's evolution. But nobody's going to get by with not unraveling our soul history, without unraveling and exploring and discovering who we are. And that's a big responsibility. It's an important responsibility. It can even be a fun responsibility, but it's a responsibility. And we can only do that when we're conscious that, hey, I'm a soul in evolution, and there's a job for me to do here. There's a way for me to participate in my awakening that will speed it up. Which brings me to our next measuring point on our measuring stick of whether or not we are soul evolutionists. You might be a soul evolutionist if you believe that you are responsible for taking part in the process of the awakening of your consciousness. I grew up in Unity, so I'm very familiar with let go and let God. And there's a time and there's a place for that. But there's also that universal energy that is waiting for us to do our part. Because if we're not participating, if we're not willingly saying, okay, what's in my way and what can I do about it, then let go and let God is going to keep us in the same little circle until we're ready to take the step that the universe needs us to take in order to move us to that place we want to go. It's about knowing the tools for awakening and why those tools are important. You know, when I was writing this talk and kind of fleshing out my thoughts and my ideas, I realized that all of the things that were coming up for me were from when I was like 16 to 20, because that was my time period of my awakening into what's important to me spiritually and why that's the most important thing in my heart and soul. And one of the stories that came up too, it happened a year before that international president year and that term that I was in, and I was the regional representative. Okay, so we're going a year back, and at that time, my mom, who's also a licensed Unity teacher, was the regional consultant for the children's ministry in the Midwest and the South Central regions of Unity. So she would go around and give workshops in churches, helping people to know how to teach kids in Sunday school, getting to know the Unity teachings better and how, kids' learning styles and all of that. And she was really, really good at it. So because of my role, she asked me, Lynn, why don't you come and talk? People would really love to hear from you, especially since you grew up in Unity and what that was like for you, because these people didn't. And, I resisted her for several months, of course, because I was 18. That's my job. And so finally I'm like, but Ma, I don't know what to say. She's like, well, just find out. Ask within your heart and find out what you have to say. So I kind of worked and struggled with that a little bit. And it came up for me. It's like, what does it mean to be a child of God? It's a huge responsibility, which I hadn't really thought of before. And it kind of made me cry. It kind of made me a little scared. Like, it's a responsibility to be a child of God. I mean, it's one thing to know, because I had always been taught in Unity, everybody's a child of God. There's nobody excluded. Everybody is a child of God. But it dawned on me in that moment, what does that mean? Does that mean we just, hold hands and sing the peace song and sway back and forth on Sundays? What does that mean? It's a huge responsibility. And it's like, and we grow into that responsibility. And so when I was talking to these Sunday school teachers, I was saying, it's like teaching a child 2 + 2 = 4. First, a child has to know what 2 is. What does that mean? What does 2 mean? So we have to show them 1, 2, that's 2. And then once you get that concept down, then you can add them together. Then you have 2 and another 2, and that makes 4. And then it keeps building and building and building on that. And those tools are important, and those little steps in understanding are important because they're the foundation pieces for supporting ourselves in life. There's so many things we can do with the concepts of numbers and how to use those. And so it's true in our soul evolution. We have tools, we have concepts that we can learn, and the more we understand them, the more they can support our awakening, the more they can support our soul's evolution, like meditation. Meditation, there's all sorts of ideas about what meditation is. Some people think meditation is, I have to sit there and quiet my mind, which is why so many people stop meditating, because who can do that, right? But that's not really the sole purpose of it. That's great if you can do that every now and then, but you probably can't, because part of the purpose of meditation is to find out what's going on in my head. Because what's going on in my head is coming out my mouth and my actions. So if I can kind of work with that, then I can change what's coming out. I can change what's coming in. So it's more than what we think it is. And meditation does more than that. It lifts our vibration, which strengthens our intuition. It is calming, yes, and it's healing, yes. But why? Why is it healing? What's it doing when it's healing? It's stopping that mind process so that some new information can come through. And then there's forgiveness. Forgiveness is important. Of course, we all know forgiveness is important, but are you doing it? That's the question. And how do you do it? And why is it important? We're going to talk a little bit more this afternoon about how forgiveness erases karma. That's huge on your soul's evolution, right? And if you don't know that's right, come on this afternoon. You'll understand why that's important. So now, just to check in, our post-test, how many of you now believe that you are a soul evolutionist? Oh, bam. All right. Excellent. Good. Being a soul evolutionist is not just about even knowing that you're a soul evolutionist. It's about actively participating in your soul's evolution. And we're going to talk more about that tonight. But right now, what I would like to do is just gather up this new revelation, this energy of this new revelation. Because when we get new revelations, we get excitement, we get new energy, we get new purpose. And so let's just kind of take some time for meditation and pull hold that experience together, holding it within ourselves for one another. And just take a deep breath and let go of everything that we talked about so far. And one of the tools that we have as a soul evolutionist is the faculty of imagination. So important. So I want you right now to imagine just a light, maybe a warmth, however your imagination works, to just picture that moving from the top of your head down through your body, through your feet, into the floor. Feeling that soothing, calming energy of the universe, divine love, infinite wisdom. Just feel that expanding in your body and surrounding you, touching the people next to you, blending with their light and energy. Filling the room. And as we feel this vibration, this energy, this light expand, we touch into the possibility for our awareness expanding from our body awareness to our heart awareness, the universal mind, to seeing the bigger picture. And with love and compassion, being able to live in the world, but not of the world. To see that it's there for healing and growth. And feeling that oneness of us all being in this together. That love and that energy that puts us in that place of knowing that our own presence, our own support of that which is going on inside of us blesses the world more than anything else we could possibly do. And we say, thank you, God. Thank you for the support that is always there as we ask, as we do our part of tapping into it, of practicing, of using it. Thank you that there's more support there than we could possibly know. Thank you for waking us up. Thank you for revelations. Thank you for the power of intuition. Thank you, God, for our soul evolution. Thank you, God, for our soul awakening. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Amen.
Thank you, Lynn. Now is the time in our service where we share our tithes and our love offerings. This is our opportunity to step into the flow of the abundance of God and to connect with our spirit in a different level. Help me to bless the offering. The words are up on the screen. Together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am grateful. Thank you. Ushers, won't you come forward?